Hello YouTube, it's DasGregor for another Linux First Impressions. Today we're going to be looking at Linux Lite. Linux Lite is a Ubuntu based distribution based off of Ubuntu LTS, which stands for long-term support. It's a 5-year support program. That means that this should be with absolute stable repositories and packages. Ubuntu, as you may well be aware, is also based upon Debian, so technically it is a Debian derivative, but Ubuntu. It's nice to see that there are groups out there that are still taking Ubuntu and doing something nice with it, because I'm not crazy about the direction that Ubuntu has started going. I don't like the whole GNOME 3 Unity direction, and that's probably all I'll say about Ubuntu in regards to that, because this is Linux Lite. Linux Lite, of course, as I've mentioned in other distributions where they originate, comes from New Zealand. That's quite interesting. I think that's one of the first New Zealand distros that I've looked at. If we look at the main page here, we will see that it gives a little bit of an introduction about it. If we go into the download section, you can find that you can easily download 32-bit version as well as 64-bit versions of this. It is very minimalistic. Not very much comes with it, but it installed very easily. The ISO was easily placed on a USB stick. I was able to take that, boot to it, and install it straight from a live version of that. It was very easy. Simple questions that were asked, things that would not complicate or confuse anybody to install. Once it installed, it pretty much laid everything down for me. I just had to update my grub and go forward. Would like to mention that one nice feature, since it is a minimalistic Linux distribution, that it has already set up things for additional software that you don't have to go through Synaptic to find. If you go into the menu to the system tray, and by the way, I haven't even mentioned that we're using XFCE as our GUI. Inside here we have the install different programs such as the 32-bit architecture if you're in 64-bit, instant messaging, restricted extras, which are codecs and other multimedia type applications, Steam for those who might want to look at the games that can be going through the Ubuntu distribution, torrent software, OpenShot for video editing, VirtualBox, and a few others. While we're in the menu, I'll just go over a few different things. It was nice that right here at the main part, install updates, I was able to click on that and all the updates were easily brought down and installed. Accessories, very minor, just calculator, some screenshots, terminal, text editor, and of course your unzip programs. Just came with the Steam and Humble Bundle games. Now, if you're not familiar with Humble Bundle, that is an interesting prospect. There are some open source developers out there that are actually programming a lot of this stuff. They're opening it up to the community to give a minor contribution. You choose the contribution, and depending upon how much you give, determines how much of the Humble Bundle. I can't say Humble Bundle. Depending upon how much you contribute, determines how much of the Humble Bundle you can get. If you hit a certain mark, for instance, there's a lot of extras that you can grab, such as extra downloaded content, music, backgrounds, different things like that that may come with the game that are just a little bit extra. Sometimes they throw in an extra game, maybe. It's a good way to support the programming community out there. It's a good way to give back. And that brings me to something that I talked about a couple of weeks ago that I wanted to go ahead and bring up in here. And that has to do with a developer from Element OS watched my video, and he wrote in the comments section about how we had completely different perspectives on how donations should work. Now I'm going to briefly go over here. That's why I have this tab open here for the home for Elementary OS, and we'll just talk about this real brief since this isn't Elementary OS's time to shine, but Linux Lite. But in Luna, when I first came down to the website to download it, I saw immediately the download button, and even though it's gray and it's there, download Luna for free, I didn't see. All I saw was that blue download button. Of course, looked right above it and saw $10. And I said, wait a minute here. I thought Luna was supposed to be free. I didn't think that it was something that I had to pay for. And when I clicked on the download button, it came up with $10 PayPal credit card. And once again, I got, well, I thought this was supposed to be free. I gave him a bum rap about it, and not realizing that you can still just put in a $0 amount and go forward, or you can click on the download Luna for free and it brings in the $0 amount as well. Now, one thing I want to say is that when you do choose a distribution that you like, it's always good to support the developers. It's always great if you can give back to them, because they're doing a lot of this out of their passion, out of their willingness and desire to give open source software to people, and they're not asking for much in return. And the developer made a great point that they don't see a lot in return for a lot of their hard work, other than a good attaboy every once in a while, and sometimes a little monetary incentive helps a lot. Yeah, I've said in previous videos, I've got SUSE caps, Gentoo polos, Slackware t-shirts, coffee mugs, all kinds of different swag from different Linux distributions where I've donated money, tried to give. Now, I'm not saying, hey, look at me and all that, what I've done. I'm just saying that every once in a while when I have a few extra dollars, I think it's good to throw something back at the community, give something in return. I know I did a video a long time ago about how when I first started in YouTube, and believe it or not, that is now over 7 years ago that I made that first horrible video introducing myself, which I looked kind of creepy, and to be honest, of course, some of you probably look at it, yeah, and nothing's changed. But 7 years I've been doing this, trying to learn how to do things, get things recorded, etc. I still run into snags all the time. But someone came to me and had mentioned that they had wrote a program for Linux for video editing, because I had talked about how Cinelera I had problems with. I was using Kino because I could put my camcorder. I could hook it up through the FireWire and just record straight from there. I got a much better picture than the USB webcam that I had attached to my really old laptop back then, and I was still having a little bit of trouble here and there. He helped me out a lot, and I appreciated his help. So in return, I went to his website. I saw that he had a donate button, and he also had a little section about going to Amazon and looking at his wish list. I found some things in his wish list. I purchased them. I sent them out to him. I think he was out of Switzerland. And I just went ahead and had those show up at his doorstep with a thank you written in there about how much I appreciated his help and bolster to learn the video editing port, and that I appreciated the software that he had built. You know, that's a good thing to do. And in defense of the Elementary OS developers and any developer of any distribution, when you use it enough, I would just say, hey, think about it. Every once in a while, don't just gloss over that whole donate button and move on. I mean, even if we look here at Linux Lite, we see that there's a donate section. Most of them do have a small donate section. They don't ask much, $5, $10, $15. You don't have to give thousands of dollars. It's just something to think about. And that's all I'll say about that, because I do agree. It's great that we have such an awesome community of developers out there, worldwide, everywhere, that are giving of themselves and programming, and they're not doing this for their job. They're doing this because of their passion and love of the operating system. And that's what I like so much about Linux, is that it's a collaboration of so many of you guys out there coming together to create things that separately we couldn't do, but together we've built this wonderful OS that Linus Torvalds has started way back well over 20 years ago now. And someday, as we've seen Linux already on Android devices and tablets, and eventually someday it will hit the home users. We have so many servers out there. I think someday Linux will surpass Windows and move on up as a much better OS. I mean, that's what all we use in my family. Anyway, that's my soapbox. We'll get off of that now. Linux Lite has some great documentation. If you go into the Linux Lite tutorial, it does talk about why it's based off the long-term support for Ubuntu. It talks about the different things that you can do in there and how to get to different spots to use. If we go back to the menu real quick, we'll see that it did come with Firefox web browser. It came with Mumble voice chat. That sounds like what I'm doing a lot of right now, mumbling. Thunderbird email client. And then, of course, there's an IRC channel there. VLC came with it. And I installed GUVC View and OpenShot and Simple Screen Recorder. Those were mine. I don't remember doing Pulse Audio Volume Control, but that might have already been in there. In Office, it does come, of course, with LibreOffice 3. LibreOffice! Yes, there it is. I'm not sure exactly what version of 3, but we'll take a quick look. LibreOffice 3.5.7.2. There you go. Since it is the Ubuntu repositories that we're using, things and the stable version, I had in my last video, I was doing some stuff here and Firefox crashed. And I said, hey, wow, there you go. It's my first crash. Well, so far in this video, nothing has crashed on me yet. Everything's been really stable. Everything works well. If we take a quick look at the background, very simple, minimalistic background here. We just got our little feather. I like that. I like those colors. Those colors for me on the background are they're nice and solid for me. It was very easy, of course, to get Simple Screen Recorder running, GUVC. As I mentioned, it does use Synaptics to pull that up. I went ahead and started most of the things that I wanted to go over, so I didn't fumble around trying to get them started. The last time when I was doing one of the videos, part 1, and trying to get things to work, I had also updates running in the background. I kept clicking on Synaptics. It wouldn't come up because, of course, everything was being locked down by the console that was doing the updates. Most everything you do through here is going to go through command line. So, for instance, I haven't installed VirtualBox. So let's just do that. So we click on that and ask us to put in our password, and then, of course, my internet would go off. Let's see if we get that back up. Try that again. System. Install additional software. We'll just try Weather Monitor. Why? Why do you tease me so? It was working so well. Why is it that when I want to do something that's off script, it decides it wants to mess up for me? Alright, let's see here. Third time's charm. Let's get rid of that. Because maybe just like I couldn't get Synaptics to work before, there we go. For some reason, maybe that's a bug, maybe that's a feature, I'm not sure, but if one is trying to do something, the other one fails, and vice versa. So as soon as I got rid of Synaptics, that popped up. Maybe it was just something weird up here, I don't know. Any which way, super simple to do. Of course, I'm not even sure what we installed there, something about the weather. I'm not even sure where that goes. I should have done something I knew about. But as you saw, very simple, went through it, installed it, everything came up, seems to be working good. Not that difficult to figure out. Ease of use is good. If you like Ubuntu and you don't mind going with the Ubuntu based distribution, Linux Lite for a older piece of hardware, laptop or desktop, it's going to work really well. It's going to help you out a lot. So I want to say that I've been having a lot of people ask about Zorin lately, and I will bump that up because I think 3 or 4 people lately have asked me about Zorin. I personally have never heard of it. I go through so many distributions, one a week right now with these videos, but also just glancing at stuff all the time. I don't want to give an impression. People have been saying, hey, is Zorin better than X? Is Zorin better than Y? Which would you choose? And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you until at least I've had a chance to look at it. So I'm going to bump Zorin up the list a little bit. We'll look at that maybe next week, and we'll move on from there. And then I can tell you whether or not Zorin is better than Linux Mint or whatever. But I will tell you this, and I'm sorry I talk about a lot of different distributions within some reviews, but I still think Linux Mint, which is the version I went to after Ubuntu, when Ubuntu decided to go to GNOME 3 and Unity, I went to Linux Mint. I was very happy with Linux Mint. Mate was awesome, gave me back what I was looking for in a package distribution. And I always say to people that so far I still feel that's the beginner Linux distro to use. It doesn't have anything crazy, strange, or anything like that. Elementary OS is supposed to be for beginners, and that's great, and I'm not crazy about its interfaces. I think that's one of the things I remember when I reviewed that. You got to keep things simple for people, and that's what I think a lot of times when you make things too fancy and out of the normal, then you're hurting yourself more than just making your distribution stand out. So I'll be looking at Zorin soon to see how that is. Linux Lite's been good. Linux Lite's been stable. So check it out if you want to try out another lightweight distribution that's not Debian based. Well, okay, I'm sorry. Shouldn't say it's not Debian based. I've been doing a lot of Debian based distributions. Ubuntu is Debian, so technically it does go back to there. But I just know how you comment trolls sometimes do it. It's, I heard you say it ain't Debian based and Ubuntu's Debian based. Yeah, I know how it's going to be. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If it's morning, evening, noon, or night, whatever you're having, enjoy it. Thanks for watching. Sorry, I've been stumbling over my words tonight. It's a little late. I was a little upset. My first video I thought was looking really great. Then things just weren't working right, and I kept trying to fix them. They were busting. I just said, forget it. I'm going to start all over. And you know how it is after take 2, take 3. You forget some things, you stumble over some things. It's like that first time was perfect. Why couldn't the video have been just right? So anyway, until next time, thanks for watching. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.